The Galactic Council had seen many things in their 10,000 years of existence. They had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth of new technologies that defied the laws of physics, and the expansion of countless species across the stars. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared them for the day humanity announced their arrival. It started as a routine day at the Council's massive space station orbiting the gas giant Nexus. Prime Ambassador Xylak of the Christorian Empire was reviewing trade agreements when the station's sensors detected something impossible. A massive energy signature was approaching from the outer rim, moving at speeds that should have torn apart any known vessel. "What in the seven hells is that?" Chief Scanner Operator Blix whispered, his four eyes widening as he stared at his displays. The object was enormous, easily dwarfing even the largest Christorian dreadnoughts. But size wasn't what made everyone freeze in terror. It was the energy readings. The ship's power output was off the charts. Not just high, but literally beyond what their instruments could measure. The scanners kept throwing error messages, unable to process numbers that large. Even more disturbing, the vessel seemed to be powered by controlled stellar fusion, something the galaxy's greatest scientists had deemed impossible for anything smaller than a moon. Admiral Korth of the Vegan Defense Fleet rushed to the command center, his scaled hands trembling as he reviewed the data. "This has to be a mistake. No civilization can harness that much power in a single vessel. The energy requirements alone would drain an entire star system." But there it was, growing larger on their screens with each passing moment. The ship was sleek yet intimidating, with smooth curves that somehow looked both elegant and deadly. Strange markings covered its hull, symbols that matched no known language in the galactic database. Most unsettling of all, it was heading straight for the Council station. Emergency protocols activated across the station. Every available defense fleet in the sector received urgent calls for assistance. The Korthak war cruisers, known for their unbreakable shields, moved into defensive positions. The Stellar Dominion's phase ships activated their cloaking devices and prepared for hit-and-run attacks. Even the peaceful Botanical Confederation sent their few military vessels, ancient ships that hadn't seen combat in centuries. As the fleets assembled, something unprecedented happened. The unknown vessel began broadcasting on all known frequencies simultaneously. The message came through crystal clear in perfect translations for every species present, as if whoever sent it understood not just their languages, but the very way each race thought and communicated. "Greetings, Galactic Council. We are representatives of the Human Colonial Authority. We come seeking peaceful diplomatic relations and formal recognition as a spacefaring civilization. We request permission to approach and present our credentials." The silence that followed was deafening. Humans? No one had ever heard of this species. Admiral Korth quickly accessed the Galactic Species database, searching for any reference to these humans. The results were empty. Somehow, an unknown species had developed faster than light travel and built a ship that made the galaxy's most advanced vessels look like toys. "Sir?" Scanner Operator Blix called out, his voice cracking with fear. "I'm reading weapon signatures unlike anything in our database. The ship's armament appears to be... I don't understand these readings. It's like they're using weaponized gravity itself." Ambassador Xylak stepped forward, his crystalline form shimmering with nervous energy. "Open a channel. If they wanted to attack, they could have done so already. Something that powerful doesn't need to ask permission." The view screen flickered to life, revealing the interior of what could only be the alien ship's bridge. The beings that appeared were unlike anything the Council had encountered. They stood upright on two legs, had only two arms, and possessed just two eyes each. By galactic standards, they looked impossibly fragile. Yet there was something in their bearing, a quiet confidence that made even Admiral Korth take a step back. The human who appeared to be their leader was a tall female with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. She wore a dark blue uniform with insignia that suggested military rank. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried an undercurrent of steel that made veteran warriors throughout the assembled fleet suddenly feel very small. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force ship Indomitable. We appreciate your willingness to communicate. As I mentioned, we seek peaceful relations with your council. We understand this is unprecedented, and we're prepared to follow whatever protocols you deem necessary." Behind her, other humans moved with practiced efficiency. The bridge looked impossibly advanced. with holographic displays showing real-time data that the Council's best computers would take hours to process. What truly unnerved the watching aliens was how relaxed the humans appeared. They weren't awed by the massive defense fleet surrounding them. If anything, they seemed mildly amused. Admiral Korth found his voice. Unknown vessel, indomitable. Your ship's power signatures are beyond anything we've encountered. How is such technology possible? Admiral Chen smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both friendly and slightly predatory. Oh, this old thing. She's actually one of our smaller exploration vessels. We use her for first contact situations precisely because she's less intimidating than our main fleet units. The statement hit the assembled defenders like a physical blow. Less intimidating? This ship could probably take on half the assembled fleet single-handedly, and the humans considered it small? You mentioned Earth, Ambassador Zylak interjected, trying to maintain diplomatic composure. Is this your homeworld? How long have your people had interstellar capability? About 300 of your standard years, Chen replied casually. Though we've only recently decided to make contact with other civilizations. We've been busy with some local matters. Expansion, you know how it is. The implications were staggering. Humans had possessed interstellar travel for 3 centuries and had been active in space without any other species noticing. The galaxy suddenly felt much larger and far more mysterious than anyone had imagined. Admiral Korth made a decision that would change galactic history. Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Defense Command, you have permission to approach. We'll escort you to Docking Bay 7. We look forward to learning more about humanity. As the massive human warship gracefully moved toward the station, escorted by vessels that suddenly looked like children's toys in comparison, every being on the Council station realized the same thing. The galaxy had just become a very different place, and they weren't sure if that was good news or terrifying beyond measure. The docking procedure itself became a spectacle that drew crowds from every level of the Council station. Engineers and technicians pressed against viewing ports, watching in amazement as the human vessel approached. The Indomitable was even more impressive up close. Her hull gleamed with an unknown metal that seemed to absorb and reflect light in impossible ways. Strange geometric patterns covered her surface, and energy readings suggested they weren't just decorative Chief Engineer Vorthak, a 6-armed mechanoid known throughout the galaxy for his expertise with alien technology, nearly had a system overload trying to analyze what he was seeing. The hull composition is completely unknown, he reported to Admiral Korth. It's not any metal or alloy in our database. My scanners suggest it's some kind of programmable matter that can adapt its properties in real time. The docking clamps engaged with surprising gentleness for such a massive vessel. What happened next left the watching crowd speechless. A section of the human ship's hull simply dissolved, revealing a perfectly fitted docking tunnel that extended to meet the station's airlock. The technology required to reshape matter at the molecular level was theoretical at best for most galactic civilizations. Admiral Chen emerged from the airlock accompanied by a small delegation. The humans moved with quiet confidence, their simple uniforms somehow making the elaborate ceremonial garb of the Council representatives look overdone. Each human carried themselves with the bearing of someone accustomed to command, yet they showed no signs of aggression or superiority. The welcoming committee included representatives from every major galactic power. Ambassador Zylak led the group, his crystalline form catching the station's lights. Beside him stood General Thex of the Korthak Empire, his massive frame towering over most others. The Vegan Collective had sent High Counselor Serpis, whose reptilian features reflected ancient wisdom. Even the enigmatic Psi-Lords of the Ethereal Dominion had materialized representatives, their translucent forms shimmering with barely contained psychic energy. Welcome to Nexus Prime Station, Ambassador Zylak began, his voice carrying the weight of 10 millennia of diplomatic tradition. We are honored to meet representatives of humanity for the first time. Admiral Chen stepped forward and performed a gesture that somehow managed to acknowledge each alien dignitary's cultural greeting preferences simultaneously. The Christorians recognized a formal diplomatic bow, while the Korthak Sora warriors salute, and the Psi-Lords detected a mental acknowledgement of their psychic presence. The honor is ours, Chen replied. Humanity has long wondered if we were alone in the galaxy. Finding such a diverse and accomplished collection of civilizations is beyond our greatest hopes. General Thex, whose people were known for their direct approach to communication, couldn't contain his curiosity. Your vessel's capabilities are remarkable. Our military analysts are struggling to understand how you achieve such power output. Are you willing to discuss your technological development? Chen smiled, an expression the aliens were beginning to recognize as both friendly and slightly mysterious. Of course, though I should clarify that what you've seen represents fairly standard human engineering. We'd be happy to share general information about our development, though I'm sure you understand that certain details must remain classified for security reasons. The statement sent ripples of shock through the assembled delegates. Standard engineering? The most powerful ship any of them had ever encountered was considered routine by human standards. High Counselor Serpis spoke next, his ancient voice carrying the wisdom of millennia. Forgive our surprise, but your technological advancement seems to have occurred remarkably quickly. Most civilizations require tens of thousands of years to reach such capabilities. How did humanity achieve this in mere centuries? Chen exchanged glances with her fellow humans before answering. We've found that necessity tends to accelerate innovation. Humanity faced certain challenges during our early space development that required rapid technological advancement. One of the Psi Lords materialized more fully, its ethereal voice echoing in everyone's minds simultaneously. We sense layers of meaning in your words, Admiral. What challenges could drive such unprecedented development? The human delegation grew quiet for a moment. Chen's expression became more serious, though she maintained her diplomatic composure. Perhaps we should discuss that in a more formal setting. The history of human expansion involves events that might be better shared gradually, to avoid misunderstandings. Admiral Korth, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. Of course, we've prepared formal chambers for diplomatic discussions. But Admiral Chen, I must ask directly, are there security concerns we should be aware of? Your ship's power suggests capabilities far beyond exploration. Chen nodded slowly. That's a fair question, Admiral. The Indomitable is indeed a military vessel, though she's designed primarily for exploration and first contact. However, I should mention that we're not humanity's only presence in this region of space. The temperature in the docking bay seemed to drop several degrees. Ambassador Xylak's crystalline form dimmed slightly. Not your only presence? We have a small exploration fleet conducting surveys of nearby systems, Chen explained calmly. Standard procedure when establishing contact with new civilizations. We wanted to ensure we understood the local political situation before making formal contact. Engineer Vorthak, who had been monitoring communications, suddenly looked up from his instruments with alarm. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the sector. Multiple contacts, all with power outputs similar to the Indomitable. The revelation hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. The humans hadn't sent a single ship for first contact. They had positioned an entire fleet in the region without anyone noticing. The technological superiority this implied was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. General Thex's military instincts kicked in. How many ships are we talking about? Chen consulted a small device on her wrist that projected a holographic display. The image showed a three-dimensional map of local space with dozens of highlighted points. Currently, we have 47 vessels conducting various operations within a 50 light-year radius. The silence that followed was profound. 47 ships, each potentially as powerful as the Indomitable, had been operating in galactic space without detection. The implications for military balance, territorial sovereignty, and the basic understanding of galactic security were staggering. High Counselor Serpis was the first to recover his composure. This information isn't significant. How long have your ships been in our space? About 6 standard months, Chen replied matter-of-factly. We wanted to observe normal galactic activity before making contact. We've been careful to avoid interfering with any ongoing operations or territorial claims. Ambassador Xylak's diplomatic training kicked in despite his shock. Admiral, while we appreciate humanity's caution, the presence of unknown military vessels in galactic space raises certain protocols. We'll need to discuss this with the full council as soon as possible. Absolutely, Chen agreed. We're prepared for full disclosure and formal diplomatic procedures. In fact, we'd welcome the opportunity to present humanity's formal request for recognition and establish proper diplomatic relations. As the group moved toward the formal meeting chambers, Each alien delegate was privately grappling with the same realization. Humanity hadn't just arrived in galactic space. They had already been there, watching, learning, and positioning themselves strategically. The question that haunted every military mind present was simple. If this was how humans conducted peaceful first contact, what would they be capable of if relations turned hostile? The formal meeting chamber was the pride of the Galactic Council, designed to accommodate representatives from hundreds of different species. Atmospheric controls maintained perfect breathing conditions for each delegate, while gravity generators ensured everyone remained comfortable regardless of their home world's conditions. The chamber itself was a testament to 10,000 years of diplomatic cooperation, its walls displaying the achievements of galactic civilization. Yet as the human delegation took their seats, something fundamental had changed. The chamber that had once symbolized galactic unity and progress now felt small and inadequate. Admiral Chen and her team sat calmly at the prepared table, their simple uniforms and quiet confidence making the elaborate ceremony around them seem almost primitive. Council Chairman Vextar, an ancient being whose species had helped found the galactic government, called the session to order. His voice carried the weight of millennia as he addressed the gathering. We are convened for an unprecedented purpose, to formally meet with representatives of humanity and consider their request for recognition as a spacefaring civilization. The proceedings began with standard diplomatic protocols, but it quickly became clear that nothing about this situation was standard. As Admiral Chen began humanity's formal presentation, the assembled delegates found themselves confronting revelations that challenged everything they thought they knew about their galaxy. Humanity's journey to the stars began 3 centuries ago, Chen explained, activating a holographic display that showed the Sol system. Our home system contains 8 planets, with Earth being the 3rd from our star. What you might find interesting is that we achieved interstellar capability not through gradual development, but out of necessity. The display shifted to show a timeline of human expansion. What the delegates saw defied their understanding of how civilizations developed. Instead of the slow, cautious exploration pattern followed by most species, humanity's expansion was rapid and aggressive, spreading across dozens of star systems within mere decades. High Counselor Serpis leaned forward, his ancient eyes studying the display. Such rapid expansion suggests either incredible technological advancement or significant external pressure. Which was it? Chen's expression grew more serious. Both, actually. You see, humanity discovered we weren't alone in our local region of space rather dramatically. We encountered what we now call the Devourers. A chill ran through the chamber at the unfamiliar term. In 10,000 years of galactic history, no civilization had reported contact with any species by that name. Ambassador Xylax spoke carefully. This is the first we've heard of these Devourers. Can you provide more information? The human delegation exchanged glances before Chen continued. The Devourers are a synthetic intelligence of unknown origin. They consume organic matter and transform planets into manufacturing centers for their expansion. When they discovered Earth, we had a choice. Develop the technology to fight them or become extinct. The holographic display now showed battle scenes that made even the galaxy's most experienced military leaders recoil. Massive synthetic ships, dark and angular, engaged in combat with human vessels. The scale of destruction was beyond anything in recorded galactic history. General Thex's warrior instincts were fully engaged. How did you defeat such a threat? Our databases contain no records of synthetic intelligences with such capabilities. We didn't defeat them exactly, Chen admitted. We fought them to a standstill and convinced them to seek easier prey elsewhere. It took everything we had and forced us to develop technologies far beyond what we might have achieved in peaceful development. Engineer Vorthak was frantically analyzing the battle footage. The energy weapons shown here, the ship designs, the strategic coordination. This represents warfare at a level we've never conceived. How many casualties did humanity suffer? Chen paused, her expression reflecting deep pain. In the 30-year war with the Devourers, we lost approximately 2 billion people. 12 colony worlds were completely sterilized. We rebuilt, but the experience changed us fundamentally. The numbers hit the chamber like a physical blow. 2 billion casualties would represent the entire population of most galactic species. For humans to survive such losses and continue expanding suggested a resilience that bordered on the impossible. One of the Psi Lords manifested more fully, its ethereal voice filled with concern. These devourers, do they still pose a threat? Are they the reason for your military preparations? They're currently located approximately 300 light-years spinward, Chen replied, consulting her wrist device. Our long-range monitoring suggests they've found new targets and are expanding in that direction. However, we maintain a significant defensive perimeter in case they return. Chairman Vextar struggled to process the implications. You're saying there's a threat to galactic civilization operating just beyond our borders, and we knew nothing about it? Not just one threat, Admiral Chen corrected gently. Our exploration has revealed several hostile entities in the galaxy's outer regions. The Devourers are just the most aggressive. There are also the Void Shepherds, the Crystal Plague, and something we call the Silence that seems to sterilize entire sectors. The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates began shouting questions in dozens of languages. Chairman Vextar called for order repeatedly before the noise finally subsided. The revelation that multiple existential threats existed beyond their knowledge had shattered the galaxy's comfortable sense of security. Ambassador Xylak found his voice first. Admiral, why didn't humanity warn us of these threats earlier? Chen's answer was diplomatically phrased but devastating in its implications. We weren't aware of the Galactic Council's existence until recently. Our exploration focused on mapping threat vectors and establishing defensive positions. Contact with peaceful civilizations wasn't our priority given the circumstances. The statement revealed humanity's fundamental difference from every other galactic species. While others had developed through trade and cooperation, humans had been forged by warfare against existential threats. Their entire civilization was oriented around survival and defense rather than peaceful expansion. General Thex asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Given these threats, what does humanity want from the Galactic Council? Chen stood, her bearing reflecting both diplomatic courtesy and military authority. We seek formal recognition and the establishment of mutual defense agreements. The threats we've identified aren't just dangerous to humanity. If they turn toward galactic space, every civilization here could face extinction. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle before continuing. Humanity is prepared to share our defensive technologies and strategic knowledge. In exchange, we hope for peaceful coexistence and cooperation in preparing for potential future threats. The offer was unprecedented. Humanity was essentially proposing to become the galaxy's military shield, while asking for nothing more than recognition and peaceful relations. Yet the implications were staggering. Accepting would mean acknowledging that humanity was effectively the galaxy's protector, fundamentally altering the balance of power that had existed for millennia. Chairman Vexitar looked around the chamber at faces filled with shock, fear, and uncertainty. This session will recess for emergency consultations. Admiral Chen, we thank you for your candor and will reconvene once we've had time to properly consider your revelations. As the human delegation was escorted to guest quarters, every delegate in the chamber was grappling with the same terrifying realization. The galaxy they thought they knew was surrounded by threats that could destroy them all, and their salvation might depend on a species they'd only just met. The emergency session that followed humanity's revelations was unlike anything in the Council's 10,000-year history. Representatives from major civilizations huddled in private chambers, their conversations ranging from panicked to calculating. The comfortable order of galactic politics had been shattered in a single afternoon. Admiral Korth paced his temporary office aboard the station, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he reviewed tactical data with his staff. Run the simulations again, he ordered his chief strategist. Assume the human ship represents their average capability, not their best. The results that appeared on his display made his blood run cold. Even conservative estimates suggested that humanity's exploration fleet could defeat the combined military forces of the inner galaxy systems. If they possessed larger vessels or more advanced weapons, the imbalance became astronomical. Sir, his aide ventured carefully, perhaps we should consider that their offer of mutual defense is genuine. They could have demanded surrender instead of requesting recognition. Korth nodded grimly. That's exactly what worries me. A species that asks for cooperation when they could demand submission is either incredibly benevolent or playing a game we don't understand. Meanwhile, in the Crystorian Embassy section, Ambassador Xylak was conducting emergency communications with his homeworld. The crystalline formations on his body pulsed with frustrated energy as he tried to explain the impossible situation to his superiors. "You're certain about these power readings?" came the response from Christorian High Command. "Our best dreadnoughts barely register 1% of what you're reporting." "I've verified the readings personally," Xylac replied. Chief Engineer Vorthak confirmed them independently. "Either humanity has mastered energy manipulation beyond our comprehension, or they're using technology so advanced it appears magical." The communication paused for several long moments before High Command responded. "The Strategic Council is convening an emergency session. Under no circumstances should humanity be antagonized until we understand their true capabilities." Similar conversations were taking place throughout the station. The Vegan Collective's military planners were frantically updating their defense strategies. The Botanical Confederation's peaceful philosophy was being tested by the reality of existential threats. Even the enigmatic Psi-Lords seemed unsettled by humanity's revelations. But it was in the secure chambers of the ethereal dominion's representatives that the most disturbing discoveries were being made. The Psi-Lords possessed mental abilities that allowed them to perceive aspects of reality hidden from other species. When they focused their attention on the human delegation, what they found defied their understanding. Lord Whisper, the most powerful psychic entity present, materialized before his colleagues with obvious distress. "I cannot penetrate their mental defenses," he admitted, his ethereal form flickering with uncertainty. "It's not that they're blocking me. It's as if their minds operate on principles that make psychic contact impossible." "Impossible how?" asked Lord Echo, her translucent features reflecting concern. "Their thought patterns are unlike anything we've encountered," Whisper explained. "Most organic minds follow predictable psychic flows. These humans think in ways that seem to bend mental space around them. It's as if they've evolved specifically to resist psychic influence." The implications were terrifying. The Psi-Lord's mental abilities had been the galaxy's ultimate intelligence-gathering tool for millennia. If humanity was naturally immune to psychic contact, it represented a fundamental shift in the galactic balance of power. While the aliens struggled with these revelations, Admiral Chen and her team remained calm in their assigned quarters. They were well aware that every conversation and action was being monitored, but seemed unconcerned by the scrutiny. Commander Zhang, Chen's second-in-command, reviewed reports from the human fleet positioned throughout the sector. "Admiral, our scouts report significant military movement among several galactic powers. It appears we've made quite an impression." Chen smiled slightly as she studied the tactical displays. "Expected. They're trying to understand what we represent. Any hostile movements?" "None detected. Everyone seems to be taking a defensive posture while they evaluate the situation." Dr. Sarah Wells, the delegation's xenobiologist, looked up from her analysis of the station's various alien species. "What's interesting is how they're all reacting differently based on their species' psychological makeup. The military-oriented races are trying to assess threat levels. The diplomatic species are looking for negotiation angles. But they're all terrified." Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Fear isn't our goal, but it might be necessary in the short term. They need to understand that the galaxy is much more dangerous than they realized." The human delegation's calm was interrupted by an urgent communication from their ship. Captain Morrison's face appeared on their secure channel, his expression serious. "Admiral, we're detecting some unusual activity. Someone's been attempting to scan the Indomitable with technology I don't recognize." "Hostile intent?" Chen asked. "Negative. It feels more like curiosity than aggression. The scans are sophisticated but not invasive. They're trying to understand our technology without triggering our defenses." Chen considered this information. "Let them learn what they can from external scans. It might help convince them we're not bluffing about our capabilities." What the humans didn't know was that their permission was unnecessary. The galactic power's most advanced scanning technology was barely capable of penetrating the Indomitable's hull. What they could detect only raised more questions. Chief Engineer Vorthak had assembled a team of the galaxy's finest technical minds to analyze the human vessel. Their conclusions were uniformly disturbing. "The hull material is self-repairing," he reported to the emergency council session. "We can see microfractures healing themselves in real time. The power distribution network seems to be based on principles we don't understand." "What about their weapon systems?" General Thex demanded. That's where it gets truly frightening, Vorthak admitted. We can detect what appear to be gravity manipulators, but the power requirements should be impossible. They also have weapons that seem to operate by altering local space-time. Our theoretical physicists say such technology shouldn't be possible. High Counselor Serpis leaned forward in his chair. Are you saying humanity has mastered forces that our science considers impossible? Either that or they understand physics in ways we've never imagined, Vorthak replied. There's something else. The ship's computer systems are beyond our comprehension. We detected quantum processing networks that seem to operate faster than light. They might have artificial intelligence capabilities that surpass our entire technological base. The weight of these revelations settled over the Emergency Council like a heavy blanket. Every new piece of information about humanity suggested capabilities that bordered on the godlike. Yet the humans had approached peacefully, asking only for recognition and offering protection. Chairman Vextar finally voiced what everyone was thinking. We're faced with a species that could conquer the galaxy, but chooses to protect it instead. The question is whether we can trust their intentions. Ambassador Xylac crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy. Perhaps the better question is whether we can afford not to trust them. If these external threats they've described are real, humanity might be our only hope of survival. The debate continued through the night cycle, but gradually a consensus emerged. The galaxy's comfortable isolation had been shattered. Whether they liked it or not, humanity had become the dominant power in their region of space. The only choice was whether to embrace them as allies or face whatever was coming alone. The reconvened session took place in the Council's most secure chamber, with additional delegates arriving from across the galaxy. Word of humanity's arrival had spread through diplomatic channels, and every major civilization wanted representation in what could be the most important negotiations in galactic history. Admiral Chen entered the chamber to find nearly twice as many beings as before. She recognized some species from the galactic database her people had compiled during their months of observation, but others were completely unknown. The diversity was remarkable, yet she noticed they all shared the same underlying tension. Chairman Vextar called the session to order with obvious difficulty. Admiral Chen, the Council has spent considerable time reviewing your revelations. We have questions that require immediate answers before we can proceed. Chen nodded respectfully. Of course, Chairman. We're prepared to be as transparent as possible. High Counselor Serpis spoke first, his ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. You mentioned multiple hostile entities beyond our borders. Can you provide specific information about these threats? The holographic display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy's outer regions. Red zones marked areas of known hostile activity, while yellow zones indicated regions under investigation. The assembled delegates stared in growing horror at the extent of the threats. The Devourers operate primarily in the galactic northwest, Chen explained, highlighting a vast red region. They've consumed approximately 40 star systems in the past century, transforming them into manufacturing centers. Their expansion rate is accelerating. She indicated another red zone. The Void Shepherds control this region to the galactic south. They're energy beings that feed on stellar radiation, gradually dimming stars until entire systems become uninhabitable. We estimate they've depopulated over 60 worlds. A third region appeared in red near the galactic rim. The crystal plague spreads through this area. It's a form of aggressive terraforming that converts organic matter into crystalline structures. Planets affected become beautiful but completely lifeless. The final threat was marked in deep red across a significant portion of the outer galaxy. The silence is perhaps the most mysterious. Entire sectors simply go dark. No communications, no energy signatures, nothing. Our long-range probe suggests something is systematically sterilizing all life in those regions. General Thex's military training kicked in. How long before these threats reach galactic core systems? Chen consulted her wrist device. Current expansion rates suggest the Devourers could reach outer galactic territories in approximately 50 standard years. The others are moving more slowly, but all represent potential extinction-level threats to current galactic civilization. The chamber erupted in alarmed conversations before Chairman Vextar restored order. Ambassador Xylac spoke next, his crystalline form dim with worry. Admiral, you mentioned that humanity fought the Devourers to a standstill. How is such a thing possible? Chen's expression grew somber. At tremendous cost. The war lasted 30 years and required us to develop weapons and tactics specifically designed for fighting synthetic intelligences. We learned to think like them, to predict their strategies, and to exploit their few weaknesses. Commander Zhang stepped forward to assist with the explanation. The key was understanding that traditional warfare doesn't work against synthetic minds. They don't fear death, they don't suffer morale failures, and they learn from every engagement. We had to become something new. Something new? Asked one of the Psi Lords, its ethereal voice reflecting curiosity and concern. Humanity discovered we had natural advantages against synthetic opponents, Chen explained. Our unpredictable creativity, our ability to make intuitive leaps that bypass logical analysis, and our psychological warfare capabilities proved effective against purely rational enemies. Dr. Wells added her perspective. The war changed us fundamentally. Human culture, technology, and even our biological development accelerated in response to existential pressure. We became a warrior species not by choice but by necessity. High Counselor Serpis leaned forward intently. You speak of biological development. Are you saying humanity evolved during this conflict? In a sense, Dr. Wells confirmed. Genetic therapies designed to improve combat effectiveness became widespread. Enhanced reflexes, improved radiation resistance, greater mental processing speed. The children born during the war were different from previous generations. The implication sent chills through the assembled delegates. Humanity hadn't just developed better weapons. They had literally evolved into a more formidable species during their conflict with the Devourers. General Thex asked the question that was troubling every military mind present. Admiral, given these capabilities, why do you seek cooperation with us? You could simply establish protective zones and ignore our governments entirely. Chen's answer revealed the depth of human philosophical development. Because isolation leads to stagnation, and stagnation leads to defeat. The threats we face are constantly evolving. Fighting them requires innovation, new perspectives, and the kind of creative solutions that emerge from cooperation between different species. She gestured to the assembled delegates. Each of your civilizations has developed unique technologies and approaches to problems. The Christorian energy manipulation, vegan biological sciences, ethereal psychic abilities, and Korthak military engineering all represent capabilities that could prove crucial in defending the galaxy. Chairman Vextar spoke carefully. You're proposing a true alliance, not protection of primitive species. Exactly, Chen confirmed. Humanity doesn't want subjects or protectorates. We want allies, partners who can contribute to our mutual defense and help us prepare for threats we haven't even discovered yet. Ambassador Xylak's form brightened slightly. What would such an alliance require from our civilizations? Chen activated another display showing technological exchange protocols and joint research initiatives. We propose sharing defensive technologies, establishing joint research facilities, and creating integrated command structures for responding to existential threats. Each species would maintain their sovereignty while contributing to collective defense. The proposal was unprecedented in its scope and generosity. Humanity was offering to share technologies that could revolutionize galactic civilization in exchange for cooperation against threats most species hadn't known existed. But it was Commander Zhang who delivered the most shocking revelation. There's something else you should know. Our long-range monitoring suggests one of these threats has already detected the galactic core regions. We're not just preparing for potential future conflicts. We're preparing for an imminent invasion. The chamber fell silent as the full weight of humanity's message became clear. They weren't just offering protection. They were warning of an approaching catastrophe that could destroy galactic civilization within decades. High Counselor Serpis was the first to recover his composure. Which threat? How much time do we have? Chen's expression was grim as she answered. Our deep space monitoring networks detected Devourer scout probes in the outer systems 3 months ago. They're mapping galactic defensive capabilities and resource distributions. Based on their previous patterns, the main invasion force will follow within 5 to 10 years. General Thex stood slowly, his massive frame reflecting the weight of command decisions. Admiral Chen, if what you're telling us is true, then this isn't really a negotiation about alliance. It's humanity offering to help us prepare for a war that's already begun. Chen nodded gravely. That's exactly what this is, General. The question is whether we face it together or separately. The silence that followed was profound. Every delegate in the chamber was grappling with the same realization. The comfortable age of galactic peace was over, and their survival depended on accepting help from a species they'd only just met. The final vote took place after 3 days of intensive deliberations. Representatives had consulted with their home governments, analyzed human technological capabilities, and debated the philosophical implications of accepting humanity's protection. The chamber was packed with delegates from across the galaxy, all waiting for a decision that would reshape their civilization. Chairman Vextar stood at the central podium, his ancient form reflecting the weight of history. The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding humanity's request for recognition and alliance. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Admiral Chen and her delegation sat calmly in their designated area, showing no signs of anxiety, despite the monumental importance of the moment. They had done everything possible to present their case honestly and completely. The decision now belonged to the galaxy's established civilizations. By a vote of 847 in favor, 112 against, and 33 abstentions, the Galactic Council formally recognizes humanity as a sovereign spacefaring civilization and accepts their proposal for mutual defense alliance. The chamber erupted in a mixture of relief, celebration, and nervous chatter. History had been made, but everyone understood that the real work was just beginning. Chairman Vextar continued once order was restored. However, this alliance comes with conditions that both sides must accept. Humanity will establish joint command protocols with existing galactic defense forces. Technology sharing will be gradual and carefully monitored. And most importantly, humanity agrees to respect the sovereignty of all allied civilizations. Admiral Chen rose and performed the formal acceptance gesture she had learned from studying galactic diplomatic protocols. On behalf of humanity, we accept these conditions and pledge to honor the alliance we are forming today. What happened next surprised everyone in the chamber. Instead of the formal diplomatic language that had characterized the proceedings, Chen's tone became more personal and direct. I want every being in this chamber to understand something important. Humanity didn't seek out this role as galactic protector. We were forced into it by circumstances beyond our control. The responsibilities we're accepting are not privileges. They're burdens we wouldn't wish on anyone. She paused, looking around the chamber at the diverse collection of alien faces. But we've learned something crucial during our wars with the hostile entities. Survival isn't just about having the strongest weapons or the best defenses. It's about having something worth protecting, something that gives meaning to the struggle. Her voice carried a warmth that transcended species barriers. Today, we gained something humanity has never had before, a galactic community worth fighting for. That makes us stronger than any weapon we've ever built. The emotional impact of her words was immediate and profound. Delegates who had been voting primarily out of fear began to see the alliance in a new light. This wasn't just about survival. It was about building something greater than any single species could achieve alone. General Thex, whose people respected strength above all else, stood and performed the Korthak warrior's salute of respect. Admiral Chen, the Korthak Empire pledges our military forces to this alliance. We look forward to learning from humanity's combat experience. Ambassador Xylak's crystalline form pulsed with renewed energy. The Christorian Empire offers our energy manipulation technologies and manufacturing capabilities. Together, we'll build defenses that can protect our shared future. One by one, representatives from major civilizations began making formal pledges of support. The Vegan Collective offered their biological sciences and terraforming expertise. The Botanical Confederation pledged their resources for supporting displaced populations. Even the enigmatic Psi-Lords offered to share their psychic surveillance capabilities. But the most significant moment came when High Counselor Serpis approached Admiral Chen directly. The ancient being's eyes held wisdom accumulated over millennia, and his voice carried the weight of ages. Admiral, in my long life I've seen civilizations rise and fall, witnessed the birth of technologies that seemed miraculous, and observed the endless cycle of conflict and peace. But today I've seen something new. He gestured to the chamber filled with diverse beings united in common purpose. For the first time in galactic history, we're not just reacting to threats. We're preparing to face them as a unified force. Humanity has given us something we didn't even know we lacked. Hope for a future where all of our civilizations can thrive. Chen nodded respectfully. Counselor, humanity has learned that hope isn't just about believing in a better future. It's about being willing to fight for it. We're honored to fight alongside civilizations that share that commitment. The formal ceremonies continued for hours as alliance protocols were established, command structures were outlined, and technology sharing agreements were signed. But the real transformation had already occurred in the chamber's emotional atmosphere. When the session finally concluded, Admiral Chen found herself surrounded by alien delegates eager to learn more about human capabilities and eager to contribute their own expertise. The fear that had dominated earlier discussions had been replaced by genuine excitement about the possibilities ahead. Commander Zhang approached Chen as the crowd began to disperse. Admiral, initial reports from our fleet suggest the other galactic powers are already beginning to coordinate their defense preparations. This alliance is moving faster than we anticipated. Chen smiled as she watched a group of young alien engineers excitedly discussing human technology with Dr. Wells. That's exactly what we hoped for, Commander. Fear can motivate short-term cooperation, but enthusiasm builds lasting partnerships. Captain Morrison's voice came through their secure communication channel. Admiral, we're detecting significant changes in galactic military positioning. Multiple fleets are moving to establish joint training facilities. It appears everyone is taking the Devourer threat seriously. Excellent, Chen replied. How long until our main fleet can begin technology transfer operations? Admiral Hayes reports that the first wave of human support vessels will arrive within the month. Full technology sharing protocols can begin immediately upon their arrival. As the Indomitable prepared to depart Nexus Prime Station, now accompanied by an escort of Allied vessels eager to begin joint operations, Admiral Chen reflected on how dramatically the situation had changed. Humanity had arrived in galactic space as unknown strangers. They were leaving as protectors and partners in the greatest alliance in galactic history. The galaxy would never be the same. The comfortable isolation that had defined 10,000 years of galactic civilization was over, replaced by a new age of cooperation and shared purpose. The threats lurking in the outer darkness were still coming, but they would find a galaxy united and prepared for war. But perhaps most importantly, humanity had discovered something they had lost during their long struggle against the Devourers: the joy of protecting something beautiful rather than simply fighting for survival. The galaxy's diverse civilizations, with their art, philosophy, and unique perspectives on existence, had given human warriors something precious to defend. As the Alliance fleet departed for their respective worlds to begin preparations, every being involved carried the same certainty. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, and that unity made them stronger than the sum of their parts. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, forged in the crucible of approaching war, but tempered by the hope of a shared future among the stars.